guys, and welcome to the maiden voyage of the I'm You podcast. So let's get this over with right away. Why is it called the I'm You podcast? Well, because I am you, or at least most of you. Just a regular guy living in the burbs with a great wife and 3 beautiful children, trying to navigate our way through the Biden-Harris economy, just like you are. So here's my promise. I'll never lie to you. If I say something wrong and I find out that it's wrong, I'll correct it and I'll take the rap. Secondly, I'm not going to tell you my truth. I'm going to tell you the truth, just from a conservative perspective. I've never been a politician, but I've been keeping my eye on them for over 40 years. I'm here to give you the scoop as a regular guy, not a pundit or politician, just someone who's been paying attention. So this is probably not the best way to start out your podcast, but I'm going to have to start with an apology. So I never planned on launching the podcast this early. I've been working on the cool graphics, some music bumpers, and some ideas for segments in the show. But with everything that's went on in the last 4 weeks, I really thought I better jump in here while I still have a grasp on some of the information. It's been like drinking from a fire hose. So forgive me if it's not as polished as it's going to be as we go on in the future. I want to start off today by covering 3 important events that have happened in the last 4 weeks. First, of course, is the Trump assassination attempt. Second is going to be the Biden dropping out. And third is the crowning of Queen Kamala. We've all seen the video about 1 billion times of the assassination attempt. So I'm not really going to cover that right now. I want to talk about something that I think a lot of people have not been saying, or at least afraid to say out loud. So let me start out by saying I'm not really a conspiracy theorist kind of guy, as I'm about to launch a conspiracy theory. But the amazing amount of lies we've been told by the Democrat Party over the last 8 years, and this administration in particular over the last 4 years, makes it almost impossible for you not to think there's something nefarious going on here. So I've been watching the news and the pundits, of course, left and right, and I'm hearing constantly that they're all confused about what went on here and how this could possibly happen. I don't think they're confused. I think they're just afraid to say out loud what they really think. This kind of blatant and transparent failure simply can't be accidental or a situation of incompetence. So let's just think about this. Trump has done literally hundreds of rallies, and I think most of them have been outdoors, if I'm not mistaken. So of all the rallies, this 20-year-old loser kid just wakes up in the morning on this particular day and says, I'm going to try to kill the former president. And imagine my surprise when the Secret Service just leaves him a wide open killing field, line of sight shot just that day. Not the last rally or the 250 plus rallies that happened before, just this particular rally when they weren't on the ball. As a famous handicap man once said, come on, man. But wait, there's more. So then we find out the Secret Service said they actually had somebody assigned to that roof. But he decided not to go up there. You know why? Because it was hot. So let me get this straight. The Secret Service protection is based on the weather. So what if it was raining? Would all of them have not shown up? And it gets even better. On her interview on Capitol Hill, the Secret Service director said they almost always record all communications between all the agents and local police. But at this one, just for some reason, they didn't. So they don't have copies of the radio communications between the Secret Service and local law enforcement. Now the FBI director comes out and floats a theory that Trump might not have been hit by a bullet. Maybe shrapnel. So I'm thinking, where the hell does shrapnel come from? Shrapnel is something like when a bullet hits something and a piece of it flies off and hits you. Now, regardless of all the dozens of doctors and experts on TV, including the hospital where Trump went after the shooting, said it was a bullet, that's Twitter conspiracy shit. Is anybody else surprised that I know more just by watching TV than the FBI director does in 2 weeks of investigation? No one could be blamed for thinking these incompetent boobs are actually trying to make us think something nefarious went on here. The more I hear about it, the more it's starting to sound like that movie with Wesley Snipes, what is it, Murder at 1600? It's coming from inside the administration. But just like everything else, they failed. Just saying. So old Uncle Joe finally gave the speech we've been waiting for, dropping out of the race. And amazingly, the media and Democrats are now praising him as a hero. They even compared him to George Washington, Abe Lincoln, and FDR. You know, I'm getting older, but my memory's still good. I remember all the way back to 4 weeks ago when he was sharp as a knife. He was running his interns ragged with his energy and vitality. Then 2 weeks ago, he was non compos mentos. Now, for those who don't speak Latin, that translates into batshit crazy. And he was about to bring the Democrat Party down with his incompetence, and he wasn't qualified to even run for president. Dozens of his so-called friends calling for him to get out of the race. So now they're praising him as a war hero who fell on his sword to save democracy from the Orange Menace. They say he selflessly put the country first by passing the torch. He wasn't falling on his sword. He was being stabbed in the back by all those so-called friends. He was kicked to the curb, he was stomped on, and that torch was ripped out of his hand and used to set him on fire. This was a political insurrection by Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi. He was dragged kicking and screaming to that speech. It looked like a hostage video. His mouth was still hanging open, and he's staring blankly into the camera. And of course, he immediately started out by lying. He said immigrant crossings are now lower than they were when Donald Trump left office. It's not even close. When President Trump left office, there were around 2,000 migrant encounters each day at the southern border. Even now, after the reduction, quote unquote, there's over 4,000 a day. That's more than double. And now Kamala is boasting that they've reduced border crossings to just over 4,000. Well, here's a news flash for you, border czar Kamala Harris. That's still twice as many as Trump had coming through on his last month in office. And by the way, again, Trump sent most of them back to Mexico to wait. You're taking every single one of them to this very day. When you're watching this podcast right now, illegal immigrants are crossing our border and being let go anywhere they want to go in the country. This is just the same crap like when he said that inflation was 9% when he took office. Inflation was 1.4% when Trump left office in January of 2021. Joe Biden took it up to 9% a year and a half later. Now he's crowing about it being 3%. Well, Joe, even at 3%, it's double what it was when Trump left office. This man is incapable of telling the truth. I actually think it causes him physical pain to say something that's true and be honest with the American people. He has never been able to tell the truth about anything, from the Russia hoax to the Fine People hoax that supposedly launched his bid to be president, to the bloodbath now. And what about drinking bleach, Joe? None of which the former president ever said or did. It's been debunked about 100 times, and he still insists on telling the same story. Even his close aides, we hear, are telling him to stop telling the story because it's not true. He and Harris, just like all the Democrats, think the American people are just stupid. We're stupid. That we're just going to buy whatever he tells us to buy, regardless of all the falsehoods, the lies, and the just harassment of half the country as terrorists and white supremacists. He had a golden opportunity just to come before the American people and be honest. He could have just said, you know, with my age, my physical and mental acuity just aren't what they used to be. And so I think it's best for the country if I step down and pass the torch to a younger generation. I mean, people would have thought that was great, but no. He immediately went into, again, vilifying half the country, that he was protecting democracy from hate. I mean, what the hell? I think it was disgraceful. So now we have Kamala, the prosecutor versus the felon. And of course, the media now act like this woman walked on water and just descended into Washington to save the world. Am I the only one who remembers she's been here like the entire 4 years? And nobody, including the media, ever hardly talked about her at all? And why didn't they talk about her? Because she's been a complete and total failure at what she does. She was given the border, she failed. She was given the fentanyl, she failed. And then she was given space. Now, I have no idea to this date what she's ever done about our space program, other than put together that fake skit with paid child actors where she talked to them like they were 2 years old, kind of like she talks to us.
I just love the idea of exploring the unknown. And then there's other things that we just haven't figured out or discovered yet. To think about so much that's out there that we still have to learn. Like, I love that. I love that. And so I'm very excited about the Space Council. We're going to learn so much. You guys are going to see. You're going to literally see the craters on the moon with your own eyes.
Oh, my goodness.
With your own eyes. I'm telling you, it is going to be unbelievable.
What was the other thing she was given? Oh, voting rights. She's the woman who said that the Georgia voting law that required ID was an attack on democracy. It was a way to disenfranchise people of color from voting. Well, guess what? The very first election they had after that law was passed had a record turnout of everybody, but especially black and brown voters. Record turnout. Okay, she talks about black people as if they're a different species of being. It's one of the most racist things I think I've ever heard. She's basically saying that black and brown people are too stupid to get an ID. Now, the same ID that millions of 16-year-olds get every year when they want to start driving. Really? So let's talk about prosecutor Kamala. Here's what she did when she was a prosecutor. She jailed 1,500 plus black men for smoking pot. Then she recently went on a morning talk show with Charlemagne the Fraud and laughed with him about smoking pot herself.
They say you oppose legalizing weed.
That's not true.
I know.
And look, I joke about it, half joking. Half my family's from Jamaica. Are you kidding me?
Have you ever smoked?
I have.
Okay. Like in
And
college,
I inhaled. I did inhale.
Okay.
It was a long time ago. But yes.
I know you have to go. They say you have to go. I just wanted to
I
ask.
just broke loose.
I mean, was it in college? See, I like stuff like that. That's a real honest
It's
answer.
real.
Was it a blunt or joint?
It was a joint.
Hey.
Yeah.
You remember the high?
I do.
So if it was legalized all throughout the country and medicinal, would you do it?
Listen, I think that it gives a lot of people joy, and we need more joy.
People enjoying this world.
Wonder what all those people are thinking right now. Also, this tough on crime prosecutor went online to actually encourage people to contribute to a fund to bail out the BLM rioters. They actually bailed out rapists and murderers. And I saw a report this morning that the guy who runs that bail fund, the way they picked people to bail out was just picking a case number. They didn't even bother to look at what crime they committed. They paid over $300,000 for one guy who killed a man after he got out on bail that she encouraged people to pay for. By the way, that fund is still up today, and she has not once disavowed what they do or what she encouraged people to do. So now she's running as a tough on crime prosecutor. Have they not thought about this? Does she really think the BLM, the Antifa, the Palestinian rioters, people who torched buildings, are going to be thrilled about a presidential candidate who's talking about putting more people in jail? I don't think so. As a matter of fact, I think it's amazingly stupid to promote this as her winning trait. She may pick up a few votes around the country for what few Democrats who are left that believe in law and order, but she's going to lose Michigan. She's going to lose Minnesota for sure because of all the pro-Palestinian and pro-Hamas Democrats and just the loony left who doesn't really seem too impressed with somebody who puts people in jail. So all the pro-terrorist wing of her party, and they are legion, are going to drop her like a hot potato. So I'm not sure who came up with the idea of promoting her as a tough on crime prosecutor, because she isn't. She not only didn't want to put people in jail as a prosecutor, but she actually promoted criminals during the George Floyd riots. She's on camera, which is one of her biggest drawbacks, by the way, when she tries to gaslight us about her history. She's on camera promoting crime, saying that the protesters aren't going to stop, and they shouldn't stop. They need to tell their truth. Truly amazing. Democrats have an uncanny knack of snatching victory out of the jaws of defeat. And do I even need to bring up the border? Hell yes. Now, this is the woman that Joe Biden, on camera, by the way, assigned as the border czar to stem the immigration on the southern border. Take a look at this graph. So the arrow represents the last month of the Trump administration, January 2021. There were about 60,000 apprehensions that month. Now, that's about 2,000 a day. Now, enter the Biden-Harris administration, and 2 months later, Joe Biden assigned Kamala as the border czar to handle the immigration issue. You can see it immediately ramped up to over 210,000 people per month. And some months were more than that. Now, think about that. 60,000 to 210,000. But it gets worse. Because of the 60,000 that crossed in the last month of the Trump administration, Donald Trump sent about 80% of them back to Mexico to wait for their hearings to occur, in many cases years in the future. Joe Biden let them all in, and he's been letting them all in up to right now. He's letting them all in. You think that's bad? This ratio really doesn't tell the whole story, because the Biden-Harris administration has been flying immigrants directly from their home countries over the border so they don't even have to cross and be vetted. He's flown over 350,000 illegal immigrants directly from their home countries into the United States without crossing the border, and then just sent them wherever they wanted to go into the country. And Kamala Harris was in charge of the whole thing. So now Kamala is saying she was never the border czar. And of course, all of her Democrat and media sycophants immediately glommed onto it to help her spread this lie and gaslight us yet again. Even though she's on camera being assigned as the border czar.
Asked her, the VP today, because she's the most qualified person to do it, to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle and the countries that help. We're going to need help in stemming the movement of so many folks stemming the migration to our southern border.
Most of them called her the border czar back in 2021.
She's backing off of the idea that she was overseeing and given the job of overseeing the border by Biden in March of 2021. Show the New York Times, ABC, CBS, NBC, the AP. She's running away from having any responsibility for that job as terrorists, criminals, murderers, rapists are caught crossing. And, agents have little to no criminal or terror data overseas on who was crossing. So we've got illegal alien gangs terrorizing major cities like New York's with shootings, drug trafficking, sex trafficking, pickpocketing, scooter robbery, home invasion gangs. This is in New York City, now other cities as well, Tom.
So she's going to try to lie. This is going to be the biggest attempt at a makeover probably in the history of the world. But unfortunately for her, the Democrats and her media buddies, we have this little thing called the internet, easily findable clips, and you'll be seeing lots of them on future episodes, by the way. And in a show of further brilliance, her first act as the presidential candidate for the Democrats, the woman who wants to be leader of the free world, her first act was to shit on our most valuable ally in the Middle East, the only democratic country in the Middle East. She decided not to sit and preside over his speech to a joint session of Congress. She would have been on camera in the back looking presidential for an hour. But no, she had much more important business. You know what she did? She went to a convention of her sorority from college. That's our future president, the person who wants to be the leader of NATO and the UN. And the first thing she does is act like a little schoolgirl instead of doing her duty as a presidential nominee. This is the person who wants to be the leader of the free world. And her first act is to humiliate herself on the world stage, and because she wants to support the Palestinian Hamas wing of the Democrat Party. Is this really who the country wants to be president?
A lot of the signs at the rally you just held were people standing there saying, abolish ICE.
Yeah.
Is that a position that you agree with?
Listen, I think there's no question that we've got to critically re-examine ICE and its role and the way that it is being administered and the work it is doing. And we need to probably think about starting from scratch, because there's a lot that is wrong with the way that it's conducting itself, and we need to deal with that.
Are you for defunding the police?
How are you defining defund the police?
Talk to me about the defund the police movement, and what do you think is the first piece of legislation that should happen towards reforming the police?
So at its essence, Andy, it really, I believe, is about reimagining public safety and how we achieve it. You know, for far too long, the status quo thinking has been to believe that by putting more police on the street, you're going to have more safety. And that's just wrong. It's just, that's not how it works.
So there's a big difference between equality and equity. Equality suggests often everybody should get the same thing. Well, that often assumes everybody started out in the same place, as opposed to equity, which is everyone should end up in the same place. And if you then understand not everybody started out in the same place, you understand some people need more.
Here's the thing. Who doesn't love a yellow school bus, right? Can you raise your hand if you love a yellow school bus, right? Just, there's something about and most of us, many of us went to school on the yellow school bus, right? And it's part of our experience growing up. It's part of a nostalgia and a memory of the excitement and joy of going to school, to be with your favorite teacher, to be with your best friends, and to learn. The school bus takes us there.
Is that really someone the American people want to be president? Well, that's about it for now. If you like what you see, please don't hesitate to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the little bell so you'll be notified of any new videos I put up. If you didn't like what you saw, well, thanks for watching. So I hope you're having a great day and hope to see you next time.